Okay, welcome back to part two of my short film breakdown. This is like the fourth or fifth video in a series I've been doing over breaking down my old short films and really showing what I learned from them and what I liked about them, but also what I didn't like about them and what I did wrong, and then sort of roasting them, kind of going through and be like, why'd you do that, Spencer? Don't do that again. So I think that would be really helpful to you if you're a filmmaker, you're going forward. Learn from some of my mistakes. See what I did wrong so you don't have to make the same mistakes. I'll have the other videos attached to a playlist with this one, but this should be the last one because this is the biggest last short film that I've done, and this will be the last one in the series for now. But we're going to jump back into it. Go watch the first part if you haven't yet, because this is a 25-minute film. We broke down the first half, and now for this video we're going to break down the second half. They're in motion. Kind of fun. That shot looks like we're driving. There's no one in the car. I'm literally just shaking this. This was like 7 days later when I shot this. Shot that on like an FX3 or something and didn't even shoot it on the Venice. So all this stuff, this was a good lesson here. You see all this is all day for night, and it's supposed to look like there's just some sort of bluish hour nighttime effect. Writing the script, I assumed that this would all be done during the day, like the morning, and so we shot all this in the day. That's just how it worked out. And when I went to edit it, I was like, this doesn't make sense. They left it like, you know, early in the morning, but then once they get to the next scene, it's supposed to be nighttime. And so it just didn't make sense to say that they were driving outside the city, but we're driving for like 10 hours. And they had enough gas to do that because they're about to run out of gas here. If you've watched the film like you were supposed to before watching this, you would know that. And it's like, none of that makes any sense. So these are one of those things where the script was actually wrong and I had to fix it. So I said in the last video that you want your, trust your script. And I do believe that for the most part. If you have a buttoned up script, something happened here, it just didn't translate for me. And a lot of times you'll see in movies and stuff, they just jump ahead anyways. But I didn't want to do that. So we ended up making all of this in post kind of look like nighttime. I did a lot of coloring to this to make it feel like we just had good exposure. Really hard to film and shoot this and cut this together because I did use a live car that was moving. Probably should have just done this with a blue screen, but because it was a van, we thought we could just get in the back. So Josh, the actor, had to drive and act at the same time, which is hard. We had the sound of the car the whole time. This was really tricky. Don't recommend doing it this way. We were running out of time, though. We were really chasing the light on this one. It cuts together nice in the end, but it took me... I worked on this scene a lot to really finesse it down, to make it feel cohesive. Like the over-the-shoulder, kind of French-over type look, but I kind of wish I would have had, when I really originally wrote it, I wrote for everything to be from like more of a point of view angle, but that would have been harder to shoot and have the actors interact with each other. So this is what we got. I think it looks fine. It's a vibe, but it's not exactly what I had written initially. So once again, going back to what we shot is not what I wrote. Love this shot though. The sun was gone. I mean, we're at like 2500 ISO. We've got some tube lights out. The sun was almost gone here. And I was like, I had to call an audible. We'd all been shooting for 3 days for long hours. And it was like, can we get this before the sun goes down all the way and do it in one shot, one wide 2-shot, which like I said in the last video, I really love me a 2-shot. So we did this about 3 times. Actors just did it. They got it. They figured it out. I did definitely have coverage initially in my mind when I wrote this. I wanted to be a lot tighter with the actors. This was kind of their breaking point where she was kind of like, I knew this was going to fail kind of thing. And I was going to be even like maybe kind of handheld, just not at all what we ended up getting to shoot. But I think the 2-shot is fun either way. So it's just kind of a different style than I initially was thinking, but we problem solved and just did it differently.
Believe it or not, I kissed other people before meeting you, Max. Anyway, there's this old abandoned dam out here. We used to hang out there to young adults.
Kind of like that cut there. Sometimes you have to move the story along using your other techniques. So I bring in the music, I pull it into the next shot rather than having them exit frame for some reason. You know, get out before they move on, sort of deal. Creating this kind of mood. I wish there wasn't cars in the background here. Didn't have time to go in at the end and kind of pull those out. We want them to look like they're in a more desolate area. So having headlights was not ideal. This is all just fun. It's just cinematic. I enjoy all this. Does it take its time? Yes, but it's cool. It looks nice. And we had this great location, this dam, and we wanted to show it off. That's real steam coming out of his mouth. It was cold. Little editing thing we did here. Initially, we had a point of view of him looking over the dam to kind of show how big it is and how scary it is. But in the end, the shot just didn't translate it. We thought that it had more impact not seeing how far down it was and letting it being kind of open to our imagination and just assume that it's scary. Another kind of tonal thing here in the edit. We didn't have their footsteps in there or anything like that. It's kind of like the music is pulling us into the next spot. Just a little more eerie without having that sound.
So, as much as I want to have mac and cheese every night, I think our best plan is to head back to town tomorrow.
I'm not going back into town. Kind of defeats the purpose.
Max, it's barely been a full day, and we're already on our way to the mission when we started. Our odds are clearly better back at home.
I'll figure something out. I just gotta get some more food.
I can't wait to see you try and get your first dinner out here. I'm not dragging back in here when you pass out with this other blood.
Well, why do you think I convinced you to come over with me? For the compliment? You're a stone cold killer.
Oh, I just thought it was funny.
Trying to add a little levity and cuteness before the tension comes back up again. Ideally, this would have been the character that played Dick, but I had to use another friend who was equally sized, and because we didn't have him when we did that shot.
Thanks a lot, man.
It was like 2 a.m, and we were about to go home. Happy accident here. That was supposed to be a cut right here, but sometimes just when the actors are rolling and they're still going, you know, Corey tilted up, got this shot. You can even see the boom in there if you look closely. And I really like how that kind of pulls us into this next shot. But that was never intended. It was just kind of a thing that Corey on the fly did because the actors were still playing out the scene. So really fun thing to do with, you know, let the actors keep going and see if you can capture more. So right here, this is all a good lesson. So this is like a corridor that we got to kind of stretch using our different angles and shots. And this, I think this scene is somewhere like 50 shots or something like that. So I think action scenes, something to know, to tell the full story is you're going to need a lot of shots and you need to plan for that. And if you don't want to do that, then try to do like a oneer or something because doing the in-between probably won't be as good. Really learned that. We did not get all of our shots in. Came back a third night and I shot listed all of it after doing a basic edit and we had 29 more shots to get. And I couldn't believe that. It took like 6 hours to get 29 shots. We obviously tried really hard on this to make it look nice and look good, and I think it shows. But also a short films, maybe you don't need to go that over the top. Maybe maybe tone it down. Maybe don't do what we did. I'm a cinematographer initially, my whole career before becoming a director, so couldn't really help myself, you know.
So what?
Like these shots though, like how close we are.
I think it's the propane.
Number one comment here. Now, he's moving pretty quickly, but people were like, why didn't he run? Why is he walking? Good question. My justification for it at the time was that it's super foggy and he's scared of things. He's not going to just start running into this corridor full of fog. When he doesn't know where it's going to lead him, he's going to go cautiously with his light. Yes, I suppose if your significant other got pulled into the fog in a dam, you might be running after them too. But look, he can't see where he's going. Now I think to show that better, we could have had a reverse shot to show the fog again. Show it just being foggy, get really close, kind of moving through it like we can't see anything. That was a shot we never got, was never able to get it, and it showed that what one shot, just like I said in my first video about these short films, one shot can change everything. Discover Dick. So we keep reminding the audience with the screams, and he's moving briskly, that way he doesn't get hurt. But then he keeps discovering things along the way to kind of finish the story out. Look, I mean, he trips anyways, so. Really want to make this mysterious, not show off too much of what was there, so it's all kind of out of focus. Like, what the heck is going on? That's why things are moving slowly. And then from a production standpoint, all of the stuff inside the dam was actually shot at a completely different location, and we had to tie them together. So we kind of just made it look like this little bar area was a staircase situation. I don't know if you can tell there, I really wanted the smoke to be in the reflection. All of this was on the LED wall. I think it turned out really well. Her hands right now in the background are on an LED wall. They're not actually at the location. We got a totally different bar setup. But this is there for real, except for her. She had a green screen. This is all LED wall. Initially, I wanted her to be floating really far away. I don't know why we didn't get that shot just to the VFX guy, Ryan Scott. I wanted her to be like floating really far away from the dam to kind of show what the jump is going to look like. For some reason, that was missed. It's really coming back to me now that it wasn't there how I kind of wanted it to be. I still think it all tells the story fine, but I think that it would have looked a little bit more grandiose and epic if we could have done that. This is fun. FX3 underwater. Got in the dam here. Got in the water. It's so cold for everyone. I didn't have to get in, but man. Initially, I had a point of view shot here looking back up at the dam, but we could never really make it translate to where he was in a way that looked good and told the story. So we ended up just cutting it and just letting it live here on him. kind of his emotion telling the audience that she's gone. To me, I wanted this to be visual storytelling. He's literally going up a hill at an angle, showing that he was at rock bottom. And that's basically the end of his arc. And this is kind of starting the next series. This is kind of going into now he must figure out where she went. How does he get her back? So he needs to go back in the dam to explore that. So this is kind of like the resolution, but it would really be like what would take you into the next part of the story or the next part of the series if it was a series, which that's why it does feel so much, I think, like a series, like a first episode of something, is because of that same type of structure. All right, in the moment you were all waiting for, I'll tell you exactly what the ending is actually all about. Because, I wrote out a bigger story, wrote out kind of the lore and everything behind it, but I didn't put it all in the story. To keep the mystery and the intrigue, of course. Planned this shot from the get-go. So I'm really glad that we were able to get this, kind of all this black around him in the center as a silhouette, and this kind of body here. So, I think I wanted the audience to think at the beginning that this was some sort of regular horror film. This is just some sort of entity that's killing and possessing people, right? But by the end of it, I want it to start becoming this kind of sci-fi thing, kind of regrounding it, right? Even though sci-fi isn't always grounded. So when we get here, this is really... The idea is that this thing is from another planet. It hosts bodies, and this is kind of a body from maybe another planet that when he landed here, that body rejected him and he had to go find more bodies. So all the bodies actually inside the corridor are not just people, not just victims. They are all for this entity, for this fog monster, whatever you want to call it, they're all like rejected hosts. They're all bodies that it tried to inhabit to keep surviving, and it has to be in a body to keep surviving, and so it keeps pulling it back to its kind of little den area, its little nest. It doesn't want to be out there with all the other people. It just has to be. It has to keep going to get more people. So that's why these people keep going missing. And yeah, so those are all the reject bodies. And then there was also this one at the end that's an alien reject body, basically, that was left behind. And that's why the skin has this shimmer to it, as this kind of glow on it, is because it's not of this world. Kind of this reptile skin, if you can see in the shot here. So I didn't need the audience to know all that. I wanted it to be just mystery and intrigue. Is it more fun to know all that? Maybe. So you can see here, we've got this kind of shimmer to it, right? This kind of like the skin is not normal, right? You can see it there. And then we get to the close-up here. Did the best we could with a projector and stuff to kind of give it this shimmer. So yeah, so in the end, it's supposed to be alien. Not far off from something like Venom or something like that. You know, from another planet coming down here needs a body to host on. I had this idea initially when I did the original Fog film, which I broke down on the channel if you want to go look at that. And I just expanded on that idea. But it's all a way of kind of showing that sometimes the stuff inside of you can be your enemy, right? The things that you go through as a human and what kind of change you need. So for him, the change I wanted him to go through was that his fears eventually were his demise. He lost his wife in the deal because he was so afraid of the people in town. Really, his own fear himself is what in the end, it's kind of cynical, but it's what in the end takes his wife away, the thing that he really does love. And so now he's decided here, he has this change that he wants to go, he's going to have to go get her back, and how he's going to have to face his fears, right? So that's where the story would keep going. If there was more story to tell, I'm not going to do anything else with this. This is probably the end of that. Unless someone out there wants to do more with it, let's talk. Maybe we can do something. But that's kind of where it ends. So it's supposed to be kind of, have some tension, some thriller-esque stuff to it, a little bit of horror-esque stuff to it. Kind of a mixed genre piece, just something that I wrote and wanted to make. If anyone's watching this that worked on it, thank you so much for working on it. It was a big undertaking and learned a lot from this one. I hope you just learned something from this video as well. Like I said, learn from my mistakes, learn from what I did that I liked and maybe you would like as well. Practice, practice, practice. It really is fun. You should be making these things anyways, in my opinion, just because you want to, not because you're trying to get anywhere. And what I really learned from this is that it's input over output. I think I had a big goal of what this was going to be when it was finished, and I think I should have just focused more on what made me happy while making it, and maybe I would have treated it differently. Maybe it would have had a different tone to it. Maybe the whole how it exists now would have been different. And so after this, it made me really think a lot about why I create things and what I want from filmmaking. And do I want it just to be a career, or I just want it to be something I do for fun? And that gets really challenging. So I think it's probably the end of this series. If you comment below what you think about this film, what do you think I could have done differently in kind of the stuff that I talked about, or what you like about it? I'd love to hear what you like about it. I think that's something that gets left out a lot in the comments. So I'd love to hear that kind of stuff. As always, I'm Sensor Sakurai, but before we go, I do want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to present your work online. Start a completely personalized website with the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. Choose from professionally curated layout and styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Maybe you want to start an online store to sell your photography or other products. Squarespace has the built-in functionality to get one of those up and running quickly, and I've actually been using Squarespace to run my online stores for almost a decade now. Make checkout seamless for your customers with simple but powerful payment tools, accept credit cards, PayPal, and Apple Pay, and in eligible countries offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. And of course, if you're like me, you're probably looking to build a portfolio, which Squarespace has tons of features for that very thing. You can even create private galleries for client work using these tools. So if you're looking for a home for your work, you can do that with Squarespace. Click the link in the description to get 10% off, and I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video.